Welcome to the third lesson in this series on Beginners Python. In this lesson, we'll learn about data types. So in this lesson, we'll think about how data is stored inside the computer and what that tells us about the different data types. We'll learn Python commands that let us display the data type of our variables and commands that let us change the data type of a variable to a new type. Here's a recap to something we did last lesson. We can store values in named memory locations called variables. The term for that is assigning a value to a variable. And in Python, it's done with a command of this form: the name of a variable, the equal sign, and then an expression that represents a value. Assigning a value to a variable always takes this form. When you assign a value to a variable, the value is stored in a memory location in the electronic memory of the computer. Here are three examples. I've created three variables called x, y, and z. The first one storing an integer, the second the result of a numeric expression, and the third a string of 5 letters. In quote marks, that tells the computer that it needs to be stored as a string. So how are those values stored inside the computer's memory? The computer's memory consists of a lot of microscopic electronic circuits that can either carry an electrical charge or not. We say the circuits are either on or off. These on-off circuits, called bits, are collected into groups of 8 called bytes. And here's a representation of a single byte. 2 of the circuits are on, 2 of the bits have the value 1, and the others are off. They have the value 0. So this is a pattern of bits, and the computer can use it to store data. If a variable is of an integer data type, this pattern of bits would represent the number 65. It could also be used to represent a decimal value. In this case, one pattern of bits would represent the digits of the value and the other would represent the position of the decimal point. But the default value of this pattern of bits would be just over 0.5. And it could also be used to store a character code using ASCII or Unicode, and in that case this pattern of bits would represent capital letter A. So you can see that the same pattern of electrical on-off circuits can be used by the computer in a range of different ways. So how does the computer know what each pattern of bits represents, for example, from those 3 choices? The answer is the data type of a variable tells the computer how to use and how to interpret the pattern of bits. There are a range of data types, but the 4 fundamental data types in Python and in most computer languages are integer, that's a whole number; floating point, that's a decimal number. Floating point just means that the decimal point can be stored in different locations, can appear in a different place, any part of the number. String, that means a string of characters, that's letters and other symbols enclosed in quote marks. And one we haven't talked about yet, the Boolean or logical data type, and that just treats the ones and zeros as representing true and false. We'll do more about those in about 2 lessons time, but don't worry about that for now. So we can store data in a variable, and then we can look and see what data type the computer has used. So here I have stored the number 9.9 in the variable x. This is a command in the Python shell. And then my next command is I've said type brackets x. So I've written the word type. That's a Python function. It will work out the type of any variable. So I've told it to work out the type of the variable x, and it's told me it's the float data type. The class of variable is the float data type. Let's try another one. I stored 99 as the variable y, and then I typed type y. That is, tell me what data type y is. It's int. That's short for integer. So 9.9 is stored using the float method, and 99 has been stored using the integer method. And let's look at just one more. I've stored the word hello as the variable z, and if I look at the data type of that, it's string. Python writes it as str, and that's short for string. So why don't you try that now? You could stop the video, go to into the Python shell and try storing some different values as variables and then looking at the type of those variables. We can also change the data type by using 3 more Python functions. str changes a variable to string type, int changes a variable to integer, and float changes it to the float data type. So x equals strx will take the variable x, convert it to a string, and store it back as x. We don't have to store it as the same variable name. We could create a new variable. But can you see that these 3 commands here all take that same form? Variable equals value. So x equals int x. That means the variable x should store the value of x converted into an integer. Let's look at some examples. So x is 99 here, as before. And I've asked the computer to display the type of x using the type function, and it's told me that x is an integer. Now let me convert x to the string data type. X equals strx. That will convert x to string. And now let's print out x, and you can see it's still 99, but now it's 99 in quote marks. It's turned that 99 into a string. And if we ask the computer to show the type of x, it is now the string data type. What difference does it make? Well, different data types can be used by the computer in different ways. For instance, if I convert a number into a string, it can't be used in calculations anymore. And operators can have different effects on different data types. We've already learned that. For instance, the plus operator adds together the number values of 2 integers or floats, but if we use plus between 2 strings, it joins them together. I'm going to introduce a technical term there. We say we concatenate the strings. That's a useful word to know. Concatenate just means join strings together. Generally, we can't mix numbers and strings in the same expression, though we can mix integers and floats. And we can usually, I've just shown you how to convert a number to a string. We can do it the other way. We can convert a string to an integer or a string to a float, but we can generally only do that if the string is made of digits and the decimal point. So you could try that. Try converting a string that says 9.9 into a float. Try converting it into an integer. And try converting a string like the word hello into an integer. And see what happens when you try all those different things. So stop the computer now and have what I've called up to now explore. Explore converting variables between different data types. And when you're ready, go on to the next slide. So here's some challenges for you. This is the last slide in this lesson. Answer these questions. What data type do you get if you divide an integer by an integer? What is the data type of the result? What is the data type if you add an integer to a float? What is the data type of a negative number? Explore a few examples. And what is the data type if you concatenate two strings? So your challenge is to find the answer to at least those 4 questions. And in the next lesson, we'll look at the data type that we get from user input and how that lets us use user input in our programs. Bye for now.